Hey, I want to thank everybody for coming to the May 19th City Council meeting. Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Here.
Mrs. Sacks,
Here.
Mr. Cooney,
Here.
Mrs. Wise,
Here.
Mr. Rod,
Here.
Ms. Marshall, Ms. Weiser.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to excuse Ms. Marshall? So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Rod,
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Aye. Vice Mayor,
Yes,
I'd move to excuse Councilwoman Marshall from the meeting.
we just did that.
Hmm?
We just voted on that.
Oh, okay. Oh. That's what happens when you gross or something.
All right,
Yes.
you voted yes.
You voted. I voted, yeah. Good.
All right, if everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we do have one set of minutes, the May 5th minutes. I know that Ms. Weiser gave Ms. Thomas some edits. Or there anything else that anyone wanted to add? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
And is there a second? I'll second. Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Rod,
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And does anyone have any additions or removals from the agenda or referral to committee? Okay, we're at to the comment section. If anybody in the audience has a comment, if you can please come up to the podium, state your name, address, and you are limited to 5 minutes.
Good evening, everybody, and good evening, everyone. My name is Rory O'Neill. I'm the Alumni Director at John Carroll University. I just want to begin my set of remarks here with an apology. I appeared before the Safety Subcommittee a few weeks back and talking about one of the ordinances up for debate tonight, the fireworks one. You know, I'm 2 years into this job. Last year was my first time in the position. It was our team that put on John Carroll Reunion Weekend, which had last year's fireworks display. You know, it was my team. We didn't do a great job communicating that to the community, and for that we are really, really sorry, and looking forward to rectifying that in the future with better communication with the community here. So I want to say that at the top. I also want to thank this body and everybody in the audience for allowing us to be a part of the conversation for this ordinance. We enjoyed attending the subcommittee meeting. We enjoyed hearing some of the local citizens here who are in favor of the ordinance. We enjoyed hearing some people's questions too, and we enjoyed having the conversation during the meeting and afterwards. So thank you for letting us be in here. We come tonight in support of the fireworks ordinance tonight. We do have an active fireworks permit before University Heights City Council. We are proposing a 7-minute long fireworks show. It's professional grade fireworks. They're small in diameter. They're not the big ones you would see at a 4th of July show at a big municipal display. They're much smaller. The company we're seeking to work with has worked with University Heights before. Their name is Pyrotechnico. They're a safe, certified, registered, professional, competent organization. We've worked with them 2021, 22, 23, 24. They've worked with organizations like the Cleveland Guardians, Lake County Captains, Akron Ducks, lots of municipalities in the region. And if, you know, approved, you know, one thing we'd like to add to our commitment to this is, you know, we would encourage a part of the ordinance communication aspect. You know, the organization that's submitting a fireworks display, they should be on the hook for helping communicate that to the community. We had a really nice, robust conversation when we were here 2 weeks ago. We believe that would be including, you know, putting up signs around town, working with the city council here for a list of houses and properties around John Carroll that would be reasonable to communicate them via postcard, working with your assets like the City of University Heights email list, Facebook groups, the mayor's newsletter, the website, all these assets we'd love to work with to make sure the communication is much better this time, right? And as a part of that communication, we would hope to make it an invitation to the entire community that you could come out and support the fireworks, but also come out and enjoy it, be a part of the community. So we would support this ordinance. We would hopefully it would include, you know, the communication aspect as well. It outlines specific reasonable communication, and it's very particular. and we would hope that it would, work towards having a path to approval for permits like ours. So we're, just to conclude, we are very grateful for the opportunity to speak about it, but we are in favor of finding an ordinance that allows short, controlled displays that have ample warning, that have a strict yet fair permitting process, and these displays would limit disruption, and that would, for the most part, and mostly uphold this compassion for every member of the community, which we love being a part of. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Are there any other comments from the audience? Hi, thank you. Yeah.
My name is Calla Schulte and I live over on Glendon Road. And I'm just coming with a concern I have that I was mentioning, my neighbor and I were talking, and I'm not the only one that has the concern. I found out many people have an issue with the pedestrian crosswalk at Warrensville and Silsby. I don't know if you're right there by the City Hall and the fire station. Not only is the crosswalk part in disrepair and the lights frequently don't work, that right turn lane where those people come whipping around that right turn with that right turn arrow, there's like no stopping. And I'm always up there with my grandchildren. I watch them, and I've got a double stroller with 2 kids and a 4-year-old on a bike. So you're herding ducks. And I mean, there's no grace period between them turning. I mean, there's very little space. If they looked up, if they looked away for a second, you'd be right in that crosswalk. And the crosswalk does need work, needs some repair. And my thought was if you could just move it down a car length, so if someone looked up, there is, there's time to stop. But it is it's difficult, it's 20 seconds. I don't know if you also, that half-hour comedy, Frankie and Grace, where they were trying to get across the crosswalk, that's how I feel. Takes a while with kids in a stroller. So anyways, my concern is that I feel that it's unsafe, and I'd like to see it moved, repaired, and, a little safer in my own city. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just maybe ask Chief Rogers if you could maybe get together with, the chief is in the back, just to elaborate a little bit more with him on the crosswalk sign, that it's the signal that it's not working. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Engelfart. I live at 2328 Glendon Road. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your public service, and that I know how much you care about our city, and I care about University Heights a great deal too. I have been walking across Warrensville Center Road at the Silsby, Washington crossing intersection by City Hall, the fire department, the service department, and then on to the Walter Stinson Community Park for the last year and a half. And I have almost been hit by turning cars almost every time I cross, coming back from the west side to the east side on the crosswalk. Tonight, there are some neighbors who weren't able to come down here. I have a 94-year-old neighbor who walks at Walter Stinson Community Park. And one of the reasons a lot of us go to the wall is because it's a nice flat path around there, and 3 laps is a mile, which is wonderful. And because it's flat, you can actually walk with good posture and not have to worry about the sidewalks in University Heights, which are in such disrepair, and not wanting to walk on the street. We go over there. So I've been taking pictures of the crosswalk, taking pictures of what the problems are, and I've narrowed everything down. The crosswalk is in great disrepair. It's a problematic intersection to begin with, and City Hall is right there. So this is one of the main intersections in the city. There are problems with a lack of visibility of the crosswalks. There are problems with a green light coming on Washington, with cars turning at the same moment the walk sign goes on for pedestrians to cross on the crosswalk across Warrensville Center Road. So these 2 lights come on simultaneously, and the cars turning are not looking. And this is why we almost get hit by the cars, or cars will see us and turn right in front of us in the crosswalk. And this is people with strollers, people walking with dogs, people running. It's really a very serious issue. So what I've done is I've come up with a packet with solutions. I have all the pictures. And one of the things that I learned about over the last year is tactical urbanism. If you haven't heard of it, it's a wonderful thing that's happening in our country where residents get together and they need the help of city council. We need your help for getting some funding. And NOACA can get the funding for insurance because you need insurance before you can work on these projects on the road. And they'll help pay for paint and other things. And we can paint the crosswalks in nice bright colors. And we can get signs up. And we can paint the posts and do different things to make this stand out. So everyone's going to know it's a pedestrian crossing. So I'm going to hand these out for you to go over. Not now.
Yeah.
To take them. And believe me, I will follow up.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. If you could give them to Ms. Thomas and then she'll be able to distribute them. I really appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and I do see you walking at 7:30 every morning with your dog. Okay, thank you. Are there any,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Are there any other comments from the audience? Okay. We are now up to reports and communications from the mayor.
Thank you. Tonight, I introduce the city's next finance director, Katie Iaconis. Ms. Iaconis, why don't you stand up, Katie? Okay. Ms. Iaconis most recently served as finance director for Parma Heights under two mayors and has worked in finance as fiscal officer for the village of Peninsula and the village of Walton Hills. A graduate of Xavier University and past president of the Municipal Finance Officers Association, she comes highly recommended. Ms. Iaconis started today with the city of University Heights. Welcome, Katie, to the city of University Heights. Retiring Finance Director Dennis Kennedy will work with Ms. Iaconis over the course of the next 2 weeks to transition the leadership of the department. I thank Dennis Kennedy for his service to the city and to the residents of University Heights in more ways than I can put into words properly. My best effort at a public thank you may be found in the joint resolution and proclamation number 2025-28, which I will be delighted to read into the record during the regular portion of the agenda. On behalf of myself and everyone at City Hall, thank you, Dennis. I'm happy to announce that Dollar Bank today has agreed once again to be the exclusive main stage sponsor of our Juneteenth celebration at the exclusive $10,000 partnership level. Dollar Bank's commitment to the community and to University Heights Juneteenth celebration is itself something to celebrate. Bell Tower Center has filed its plans with the building department for the parking garage partial demolition or peel back. The plans are undergoing review now. University Heights has secured the domain name universityheightsoh.gov for a future transition of the website and all emails. On the third Wednesday every May, we remember vulnerable road users who have been injured or killed on public roadways. The 2025 Ride of Silence is this Wednesday, May 21st at 6:30 p.m. Starting at JCU Dolan Science Center parking lot here in University Heights. This group ride is done in silence at speeds no faster than 12 miles per hour and finishes at University Hospital at University Circle. There will be a short presentation to allow people to speak about how traffic violence has affected them, providing an opportunity to share their stories. Cuyahoga County has installed bike share stations at 4 locations in University Heights, including Cedar Fenwick by the library, Cedar Warrensville Center by Whole Foods, and 2 at both sides of Cedar Taylor. We welcome and thank Cuyahoga County for this investment in bicycle infrastructure in University Heights and throughout the county. The new city bike racks are here, ready to be installed at 9 locations around the city. The first will be installed at Purvis Park in time for the pool opening. The bike racks at the Walt will be installed before the Sunday, June 8th, 3-City Bike with the Mayor event. The rest of the racks will be installed shortly thereafter, all to be used this summer. My thanks to our service department and our friends at Laborers 860 for their help on the installation. And a final bit of bicycle news. I've authorized our city engineer to begin preparing an RFQ for design services for the Washington Boulevard All-Purpose Trail, which will connect Walter Stinson Community Park with Kane Park in Cleveland Heights. This ODOT project is programmed for state fiscal year 2027, so construction may begin as soon as July 1st of next year. Okay, so I have one more bit of bicycle news. In my recent visit to Canada, as part of a delegation of mayors and city managers from Northeast Ohio, I observed the continued transformation of bicycle infrastructure in Montreal. When I visited there 10 years ago, Montreal already had a popular bike share program and some separated bike lanes. Today, they have over 500 kilometers of bike lanes in the city limits. They are used year-round as snow and ice are cleared from the bike lanes, including from the protected lanes. I observed at Victoria Square, happy Victoria Day for any Canadians out here, one of the unintended consequences of the program, as Victoria Square is a popular destination, yet not as popular an origination point. Fleets of trucks flatbed away for redeployment the bike share bikes that accumulate at the square. Nevertheless, the investment in bicycle infrastructure and sustainable infrastructure under Mayor Valerie Plante was inspirational and provides direction on where we can go as a city, region, state, and country to improve traffic, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and promote an active, healthy lifestyle. While in Canada, I see Jeffrey's here. So while in Canada, I observed in Ottawa that residents have curbside pickup of organics for composting weekly. They've had it for 10 years. They have recycling weekly, and they pick up rubbish only every other week. Turning back to matters at home. Congratulations to the 2025 Ohio Fire Service Instructor of the Year, University Heights Fire Department Captain Doug Robinson, being named, yes. Being named the Ohio Fire Service Instructor of the Year is one of the highest honors for fire instructors in the state. The award recognizes exceptional dedication, leadership, and impact in fire service training and education. It is a testament to an instructor's commitment to excellence, innovation, and mentorship in developing the next generation of firefighters and fire officers. Our thanks to Captain Robinson for his exceptional service, earning him this statewide award. Finally, in what should seem very obvious to some, in the event of an emergency, please call 911. When you call 911, you initiate the full resources of University Heights EMS and the broader emergency response system. Anyone else you call does not do that and creates delay in professional emergency response that can save a life. We have begun posting Call 911 signs around the community to remind residents that this is the best and only number to call. Chief Perko, who could not be here this evening, reported to me an incident that occurred on April 28th, 2025. An elderly male experienced a medical emergency. Instead of calling 911, a presumed neighbor called Hatsala Cleveland. Hatsala Cleveland responded independently, bypassing CVD, bypassing the University Heights Fire Department and the University Heights Police Department. The patient was found hypotensive, but was not transported or escalated to advanced care. His blood pressure was 90/50, and Hatsala Cleveland left him there. After over a 2-hour delay, University Heights Fire Department was finally called, dispatched, and arrived on scene. This delay in receiving ALS level municipal EMS care resulted in a rapid clinical deterioration and created a potentially fatal risk. This condition was later confirmed by the receiving hospital, and the patient was determined to have a poor prognosis. On Friday, we learned he was released to hospice care. The incident represents a profound breach of public trust and operational integrity. It underscores a failure in emergency response coordination that nearly resulted in the loss of life. It reflects an emerging crisis of community confusion, a breakdown in dispatcher protocols, and dangerous unsupervised operations by an outside EMS entity. UHFD members are deeply disturbed by the growing pattern in which patients are denied the immediate, high-level, definitive care they expect, deserve, and that UHFD has built its reputation upon. This failure has not only placed patient lives at risk, but has imposed an unacceptable emotional, mental, and ethical burden on our department members who are witnessing firsthand the consequences of compromised care. We call for immediate and decisive action, including suspension of non-affiliated EMS field operations, system-wide policy overhaul, and leadership-level accountability to restore order, ensure legal compliance, and protect the health and lives of University Heights residents. And that was from Chief Perko's memo to me. The mayors and chiefs and law directors of Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, South Euclid, and University Heights met. Even as Hatsala Cleveland continues to fail to meet with our group. We are preparing uniform legislation for the 4 city councils to consider that sets standards, requires local registration and licensure, and establishes penalties, criminal penalties, for acting outside those standards and or without that licensure. This is required to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of our 4 cities. My thanks to my fellow mayors for their leadership. Other options may be considered besides to protect the public. In the meantime, your best protection is to call 911 in the event of a medical emergency for our fire department and EMS. Thank you. This concludes my report.
We are now up to reports and communications from City Council. I have a few things to report. First of all, I want to personally express my good wishes to Mr. Kennedy. City Council was not told that there was a new finance director and that you only have 2 weeks left. So I know that we all would have, had a little party before or something for you, but you have been invaluable to us and we will definitely miss you. I also want to just mention that there was a safety public meeting, as Mr. O'Neill from John Carroll mentioned last week. I think part of the reason that there was maybe about 10 people there is that the administration did not promote the public meeting, not online, not in the mayor's report, which is usually done. There were letters that were sent. I got many replies, emails, phone calls that they didn't receive a letter. And I know that the post office can sometimes be unreliable, but it's a shame that we didn't have a bigger turnout because of all of the calls and emails that I know that our entire city council have received on this matter. And then finally, I just want to publicly state that I'm also disappointed that Juneteenth is not on a weekday or a Sunday this year. It's on a Saturday where many residents of the city cannot attend. I did mention this and the date is staying the same. And I look forward to Juneteenth for many years, but unfortunately, because it is on the Sabbath, I will not be able to attend. And it's just unfortunate because many other residents will not be that have gone in the past either. So thank you. We're now up to reports. Oh, yeah, sorry, Ms. Sachs.
Thank you. I would just like to make a brief comment on the mayor's last point. I'm on the safety committee, and a couple of months ago, it was brought up that the city would like to sponsor a Lifeline emergency response system. With regard to calling that and the delay involved in that, and not necessarily calling 911 as a person's designated responder, it sounds like that will be outlawed as well. So I just want that to be taken into consideration and people to understand that it takes away from their personal choice of who they would like to call, whether it's 911, which is always advisable. I perfectly agree with that, or their neighbor, or their child across the country, or pressing their alert button, or calling no one, which people have the right to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sachs. Are there any other comments before I go on? Okay, thank you. We're now to reports and communications from the directors. Department of Finance, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just like to say thank you to everybody here, the mayor, members of council, past members of council, all the department directors. Everybody has treated me very well over the years, and I really appreciate the support, professionalism and consideration that was shown to me. I'll miss Mrs. Thomas as well. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, and I will continue to follow the progress of the city as I live close by. And if anybody ever needs anything from me, please don't hesitate to give me a call. And I'd like to wish Ms. Iacona the best of luck. I know she'll be good, and hopefully things will transition very quickly and smoothly. Along those lines, I just want to give you an update on our audit. I talked to the auditors from Zupka last week, and we're in good shape to make our gap conversion financial statement deadline of the end of this month. Those statements get filed with the auditor of state. Then the field testing crew comes back in June. They'll be here for a day or two, and then they'll wrap up the report, and that will be issued according to what I was told, probably about the third week of June. So the schedule gives us to the end of June, but I think we'll hit the mark before that. They have not indicated that there's any items out of the ordinary or any items that I need to check out or follow up on beforehand. So that's good news. So I'll keep you posted before I leave about that status as well. I owe you a report for the end of April, which I will get out. We had some small changes we had to make in April, and I'll get that out. And then by the time June rolls around, I believe Katie will be in a position to close the books on May and get you the reports that you require during the first couple weeks of June. And we have something on the agenda tonight, which is an amendment to appropriations, which we usually do mid-year. This will straighten out a couple of accounts that I found were not consistent with what the original budget should have been. They're small. It also takes into account the transfer in the advance pact the council approved at the last meeting to give money to the street fund to leave an extra $100,000 in there for the expanded projects. So with that, I will wish everybody the best of luck. Good luck to you, to your families, good health. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Are there any questions for the finance director? Okay, Department of Law, Mr. Bryan.
I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Public safety, I know just the police chief is here, Chief Rogers. Thank you. And Service Department, I know Mr. Pennington's out of town. Is there any report?
There's no report. There is an item on the agenda that he asked be considered.
Okay, thank you. And Building, Mr. Bartley. Thank you. Housing and Community Development, Ms. Davis. City Engineer, Ms. McPhee.
Good evening. I just wanted to report that the Silsbee Water Main Project, they'll start again tomorrow. They were waiting for Cleveland Water to approve their line, the main. It's passed, it had to pass 2 chlorination and pressure tests. It passed. So I was in contact with the contractor. So tomorrow they're going to try and wrap up this job. They pre-dug the connections to the houses, so hopefully the 11 connections will go fast. He's gonna try and see what he can get done before the end of the week. So, sorry.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any questions? Thank you so much.
Be back.
Communications and civic engagement. And economic development.
Thank you.
Pleasure working with you once again. Who knows, maybe go for the third time.
Susan is the one who got me to come here, by the way.
So, but, just one report, today was the deadline for the comments on the matrix that, was sent out for the zoning code. So those comments have been compiled into a file. We were going to send them off to the consultant, waiting for a draft and then having a follow-up meeting. So we,
Yeah, I think we should do one more follow-up meeting to ensure he has the direction, whether we're going this direction or not,
exactly.
because there was some back and forth.
Before the public hearing start.
Yeah.
So that would be in one more meeting, the committee, and then final comments for the draft that would then be presented for public comments. Remember, even during public comments, that anything could be changed as we go through the process, because you may hear something from residents or business owner and a perspective that we didn't consider, so changes can always be. So, so those will be, that they will be final comments that be sent out. First thing tomorrow. Okay.
I got you.
Okay. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Drucker. Okay, we're now up to, Ms. Weiser, did you have a comment or no?
No.
Oh, okay, thank you. We're now up to the reading and disposition of ordinances, resolutions, motions, and consideration of agenda items. Agenda A is Resolution 2025-28, a joint proclamation and a resolution recognizing the service of Finance Director Dennis J. Kennedy.
Joint proclamation and resolution recognizing the service of Finance Director Dennis G. Kennedy at the occasion of his retirement from the city of University Heights. Whereas on October 23rd, 2019, Dennis G. Kennedy began his service to the city of University Heights as Director of Finance. And whereas since 1977, Dennis has made a career of public service, culminating in Deputy Director of Finance for the Ohio Lottery Commission before taking his first position as a Municipal Finance Director in Beechwood in 1996. And whereas after a 5-year tenure as Executive Director of the Ohio Lottery Commission, Dennis served as Finance Director of Brooklyn and then Solon before serving as Fiscal Officer for Cuyahoga County and ultimately joining the team at University Heights City Hall. And whereas during his tenure in University Heights, Dennis recommended and implemented best practices in finance. The city implemented the minimum reserve policy at his recommendation. There has been consistent and continued growth in the city's investment portfolio. Under Director Kennedy, we have had clean audits every year. Whereas Director Kennedy and his team did something last year that not even the Kansas City Chiefs could do, win the big one 3 years in a row. When it comes to the Auditor of State's Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting, the city of University Heights earned the three-peat 2021, 2022, and 2023. The 2024 audit is now underway. Whereas Dennis has been a trusted advisor to mayor and council, unimpeachable and of good word. Now therefore be it jointly proclaimed by the mayor and resolved by the city council of the city of University Heights, Ohio, that Section 1, the city of University Heights recognizes the service of Finance Director Dennis G. Kennedy at the occasion of his retirement from the city of University Heights, Ohio. We thank Dennis for his service to the city and to the residents of University Heights. We wish Dennis, Gina, and his family good health and happiness for years to come. Section 2, we hereby designate Friday, May 30th, 2025 as Dennis Kennedy Day in the city of University Heights. Section 3, it is hereby found that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance of all legal requirements. Section 4 of this resolution shall take effect at the earliest time allowed by law. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
Because I'll get killed if I don't.
Okay.
I just want to thank Denise and Rita in the finance department.
Yeah.
They've been with me the whole time. We work very collaboratively as a team and have kept the expenses down. I think we're the lowest paid salary wise finance department. We all work part-time. But without their help, we would not been able to make any of those accomplishments the last several years. And I am assuming and hoping that we will get the same commendation from the auditors for 2024. So thanks to those two, Kelly, I'll miss Kelly's coffee every day. I might come anyways, but thank you. And thanks, Mayor, for reminding me how old I am, actually.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime, Dennis.
Wow. But thanks to everybody. I really appreciate all the kindness everybody has extended to me over the years. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Agenda letter B.
Oh, we need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
because we have the proclamation. Is there a
Yes.
motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Rock.
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Okay, there's a small typo on Agenda B, but it is introduction of Heights Poet Laureate Michelle R. Smith.
See, Steve Presser's here. Hello, Steve.
Can you hear me?
Use the microphone, please.
Please.
My name is Steve Presser. I am a founding member of Heights Arts, which was founded 25 years ago, and I'm presently the president of the fine organization. I also, for a little bit of trivia, I was the first child born on Claver Road in University Heights in 1957, and my family owned the home for 50 years. And I went to Wiley. So I was a Wiley warrior. But I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here to talk about the Poet Laureate, and I'm going to read this. Last month, we celebrated National Poetry Month and recognized the service of outgoing laureate Sierra Freeman and welcome incoming laureate Michelle R. Smith. This is a special celebration of a laureateship program which happens to be the longest running in the state of Ohio. Also, last month was Poetry Month. Sierra holds the added distinction of becoming our very first Heights Poet Laureate, having added the city of University Heights into the mix just as we were choosing our next laureate. And we're very thankful for you guys joining. I want to thank Sierra for her openness, your creativity, energy, and work, and willingness to go on this journey with us over the last 2 years. On behalf of the board and staff of Heights Art, I want to express how grateful we are, not only for your contributions and dedication, but for your patience and diligence in paving the way for our new laureates to maintain this role moving forward. You have been a true inspiration to us. And now I'd like to introduce Michelle R. Smith, who will be our 12th Heights Poet Laureate. Michelle R. Smith, a poet, and a literary advocate, was selected by the Heights Rights community team from a pool of highly qualified applicants. She began her 2-year term last month, and she's representing the cities of Cleveland Heights, University Heights, and Heights Arts. Smith is known for her creativity and advocacy in the arts as the creator, producer, and director of Black's Museum, an annual performance showcase celebrating notable Black figures in American history and culture. She has demonstrated a deep commitment to cultural storytelling and artistic innovation. Smith is also the author of Ariel in Black, a guide to culture press, and will soon release The Real Jazz Wives of the 20th Century America. In her role as Poet Laureate, Smith will work to foster community engagement with poetry. She will host public readings, which you'll hear tonight, workshops, and other events bringing poetry to a broader audience across the Heights communities. Additionally, Smith will lead Heights Arts Expressly Series, which invites poets to create and perform original works inspired by visual arts exhibitions. I am truly honored to serve as Heights Poet Laureate and look forward to a wonderful 2 years of connecting with the community, said Smith. The Heights Poet Laureate program is the longest running laureateship in the state of Ohio, established through a partnership between Heights Arts and the city of Cleveland Heights and University Heights. Local officials have expressed their excitement about Smith's appointment. University Heights Mayor Michael Brennan said, "We're thrilled to support the arts, and adding poetry to our city's cultural events has been an inspiration for our residents." Cleveland Heights Council President Tony Kuda echoed this sentiment, stating that the Heights Poet Laureate program is a cherished tradition that makes our community unique and special. I'd like to introduce our present Poet Laureate, Michelle R. Smith.
Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for having me. Just going to read this piece really quickly. It's an honor to be here with you. It's a pretty stormy piece, but we're in a stormy moment in the country. Kind of reflects this. I wrote this at Edgewater one day last summer, and it's called Edgewater. Eerie waves pound the rusty scaffold of the pier, tremble the asphalt, funky fake ass rock cracking, crumbling like time beneath me. Feet scream, ankles boom, knees sob, hips whine in an ultrasonic symphony of pain. I am sick with the cruelties of salt and stress and history and right now. I am tired of never getting to rest, never getting to trust anything I stand on. America is not a democracy, not a dream, not a Purple Mountain song, not one nation, not God's, not ours, not anything, but a star-spangled armory. It's funny, and it's not. I wear black all the time, involuntarily and voluntarily, inside, outside, head to toe, even on sunny Sundays. I watch the water like a starving seagull for the lesson of flow, how to be free even in an endless system. I watch the water aching like the faceless clouds to cry out my accumulation of grief. Because everywhere someone is killing, and so everywhere someone is dying. Everywhere someone is unbecoming a mother, and someone is unbecoming a child. I have been in mourning since September 18th, 2006. The loss of my grandmother batters my memory like a Merkava tank, cracks my skull like the current knuckling the stone teeth of this river's dirty mouth. I have been mourning the could haves and should haves, dug like weeping willows in the mud, that I cannot make happen like peace, that I cannot end like war, that I can only spit at nastily like the lake at its unwanted break wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. You're now up to agenda letter C, ordinance 2025-06, amending chapter 1615 of the city fire code related to fireworks. And this is on second reading. As I mentioned before, we did have a public safety meeting regarding this. And I appreciate everybody who came out to that. There has been very robust discussions online and with other council members as well. I know that John Carroll they mentioned something in public comments. I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to say before we discuss this publicly.
Thank you. We have nothing further to add, but we're happy to answer any questions as well. So,
Okay.
and be a part of the further discussion as well. So.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not sure, how this turns out, but we value John Carroll's partnership. We are University Heights because of John Carroll, and, you know, this will just, either way, we are your partner and we cherish that. So I want to thank you. Does anyone want to start any discussion? Yes, Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to clarify and correct something that was put on the record earlier this evening about the administration not putting out a letter or publicizing a letter. There was no letter. There was no letter that was mailed to all the residents of the community. What was mailed to some residents was a copy of the notice of the meeting, which had the agenda item on it, but without a cover letter of explanation to provide context as to why this was being sent out. I think a lot of people got this notice in the mail and had no idea what to do with it. I understand this went to 1,500 homes. We have about 4,700 homes in University Heights. I understand the 1,500 it went to were homes around the campus. But when I keep reading online that there was a letter that was mailed to every home, I know that's not true. And when it comes to the administration not sharing the letter too, we didn't get a letter. We don't have a letter. We had a notice, and the notice was published on the website, and I could have suggested putting it on social media, but without a letter of explanation, if we were to draft our own, surely it would have looked like we were weighing in on, you know, this item, providing some sort of opinion. If council wanted to put out a letter that explained what this public meeting was for and what they hoped to solicit, you know, that is something that maybe we could have shared on our socials. So you know, I think the only people that came to the meeting were people that had additional information because they'd heard, you know, either from attending a council meeting, or they knew a council member, or they saw something on Nextdoor where some discussion I know was had. If you just got the letter in the mail, I don't think anybody would know what it means or what to do with it. And that, I think, is why you didn't see very many people attend your meeting.
Okay, just to clarify one point, and the safety committee directed the administration to please send out a citywide mailing notifying of a public meeting. Okay, Ms. Weiser, you had a question?
Well, you don't direct the administration.
Ms.
You
Weiser,
directed your clerk of
I
council.
just called on Ms. Weiser, Mayor.
Yeah, well, your
Yeah,
clerk
Ms.
of council
Weiser.
did the mailing.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I did what I could on social media. I was shocked that the Friday newsletter went out and didn't even refer that there would be a public meeting. We have a problem in this city where the administration refuses to acknowledge that the council is actually a part of the city of University Heights that functions along with the administration in University Heights. And it creates a huge disservice to our residents. None of us, none of the 8 elected officials in this city have been elected to only pretend that we are part of only one segment of this city and its operations. The council does what it can. We have we had to fight, we had to go back and forth for a year to finally get an improved program to even be able to publicize the meetings so they were more transparent than trying to run things on Zoom. It's frustrating. The public meeting on this item was not about the council. It was about our residents that contacted, and I'm sure some residents had contacted you, Mayor, complaining about the fireworks last year.
None.
And I'm sure some people did say they did, but apparently you don't or didn't get the email. But that is who we serve. Those are the people that provide the funds that run this city and that are a part of this city. And although I bore you when I say this, at least someone has to say it. because you act like it isn't.
May I?
I think that
Thank you.
public,
Go
I'm
ahead.
not finished,
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
and you do not have the floor.
I do not have the floor. Go,
Thank
please go
you.
ahead.
Regarding this ordinance, I think some good comments were actually made by John Carroll. I think this particular ordinance has no limitations on it. We could have 10, 20, 30 fireworks a year under this. There's no cap. We could have 20, 25, 35-minute displays. There's no cap. And John Carroll pointed that out to us at the public meeting. I think that the other problem with it is this is an ordinance that specifically addresses John Carroll. It's the only place in the city where fireworks can be set off. The only place. I don't think that's necessarily bad. I was pleased to hear that the alumni directors say that they were willing to make it an open meeting. Unfortunately, as you heard, we apparently have communication problems, and we would have, probably if you asked the administration, they might be willing to work with you if this were approved to actually get the word out. I am going to also remind everybody that last year you in good faith did that fireworks display. John Carroll did not do anything wrong. The permit was issued and approved by the administration of this city, knowing full well that there was nothing in the code that allowed for that permit to be issued. Oh, don't shake your head. You knew it because it was discussed when
No.
these ordinances went through, and you knew this one hadn't come through that
You would
would
please
allow it.
restrict your remarks.
My comment without interruption.
And please stick to the point and beat your man.
It
I call
is
a
the
point of
point.
order. I call a point of order.
Mayor, Ms.
I
Weiser
rise
has-
to,
the
I rise to a
character
point of
goes.
order, and I ask the chair to rule on this point of order.
Ms. Weiser
That
has
if
the
she
floor.
has the floor, she
gavel.
can, and I ask that you call Mrs. Sachs to order. That when she is discussing legislation, she's not to direct comments to individual people. She's to talk about the legislation in point.
Okay,
And you
Ms.
are not
Weiser.
calling Mrs. Sachs to order. I ask that you call
Mayor.
her to order, and then I call you to
Mayor.
call Ms. Weiser to order. Thank you.
Ms. Weiser, please continue.
Certainly. I believe that that comment is about reminding this community it was not John Carroll's mistake. And I think that has to be acknowledged. Now we have a chance to look at it. As this ordinance stands, I would not vote for it unless we add some amendments to it that are restrictive. Because I also know what's going to happen to John Carroll. Because, oh, you can get permits. Hey, look, we've got this big celebration. And there's that temptation. After that public meeting, I received 4 emails from residents saying, please vote no. One is a vet that has PTSD. 2 were pet owners, and 1 just objects in general to noise. But that's just a sampling. There are 12,000 people that live here. And I know that there are some people that are actually supportive of it. But as it stands, as it is written, I can't support it unless we were to add restrictions. And I find it amazing that it is John Carroll that actually offered us the information about restricting.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser. Does anyone else have any other comments? Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I think it's important that we go back to how the fireworks legislation in recent time has come before this council. The state of Ohio changed fireworks law through the Ohio Revised Code to set aside all municipal and county fireworks provisions in violation of home rule. And in a seeming nod to home rule, said that if counties or municipal divisions wanted to reassert other rules, their old rules, what have you, that they could. And the intention that was stated here in this room and on this subject had been from the beginning that we wanted to reinstate the prior status quo, which was a general prohibition on fireworks, not the consumer kind, not the little poppers you can buy at Target, but on firecrackers, on fireworks generally, except when you have a permit like we give to John Carroll. The discussion had always been one about restoring the previous status quo. Whether by inadvertence or sleight of hand, the ordinance that was passed did not have that and was not what was represented. So when I hear council members say that the administration knew that the law was not what it was supposed to be, in fact, the law was not what it was supposed to be. The law was supposed to reinstate the status quo. And when John Carroll came and asked for the same fireworks show that they always ask for, and the fire department saw the same permit requests they get every year, they approved it. And if the council had done its job and had reinstated the fireworks ordinance to the pre-state interference status quo, there would have been no controversy. That permit would have been appropriate. The fireworks show was the same as it ever was and should have been allowed and should still be allowed. And I would ask the council to quit wasting time on this. It's been a year now since we had the last fireworks display in June, and you've known that there is something that needs to be done. And as usual, you're taking months and months and months to do your damn jobs. So pass this thing already. Restore the status quo. Let our largest employer and our namesake in this community have its fireworks show for 7 minutes on a June Saturday night. Thank you.
First of all, I was heavily involved with making this new ordinance 2 years ago, and there were no fireworks, period, allowed in the city. That was very clear. It was, we had many residents come and express their thanks to us because of their animals that have been disturbed, terrified, and because of residents that had PTSD. So that is not the case. It was a blanket statement that no fireworks are permitted. And how dare you say that council does not do their job? First of all, a month ago, this was presented to us. If you knew John Carroll was getting a permit, you should have given it to us in January. You should have given us to last summer.
You've had.
Council works very hard, harder than we have to because the administration is not doing their work. That being said, John Carroll is a partner. However, I personally, honestly, one way or the other, I don't care if there's fireworks or not. To me, it doesn't matter. The only feedback that I have received from residents is no. They don't want it. It's loud. Our homes are too close together. It startles people, it startles babies, and it startles animals. We do not live in the country. We live literally right on top of one another. That is my opinion. I am only one vote, but I would like to have it open for discussion. Ms. Sachs.
Thank you. I was unable to attend the public hearing, but I did listen to it online. It was not available visually. And I listened to every comment. And I do appreciate that John Carroll and some others gave some practical input and ways to work with it. I cannot ignore, though, that every resident that's reached out to me was a vulnerable resident, someone who fits into many of those categories that was just mentioned. And we are the second most densely populated city in Ohio, behind Lakewood, I believe. And we're only 1.8 square miles. So it's not like someone, we're all on the property of John Carroll practically. So while I'm very supportive of John Carroll, and I like a good fireworks show, I cannot ignore the desperate voices from the vulnerable people in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sacks. Are there any other comments? Mr. King?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Most of the feedback that I've received and a good portion of the conversation that was had at the public meeting revolved around notification and just knowing that the presentation was going to happen on X date at X time. The ordinance before us this evening doesn't have anything on that. Along the lines of what Ms. Weiser was saying about restrictions, they aren't on there. Many of the things that we spoke about the other night. So I would like to see more restrictions put in there along the lines of notification requirements, time limits, number of permits that can be permitted. But as it's before us this evening, I could not vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Cooney?
Thank you. I thought one of the more interesting comments from the public that was said is in regards to notification, a minimum amount of days prior to the event as to when that should occur. And it was I was glad to hear John Carroll say today that there, in regards to signage around the university and other tools that could be used for communication for the community, whether it's through social media or other notifications, that they were open to, which I agree with. In my neighborhood, I'm close to John Carroll. I'm on Miramar Boulevard, and I've been with our neighbors, and as soon as they know that the fireworks are going to happen, the kids all go towards John Carroll to see the fireworks. Families go. I was there, I think it was 2 years ago, and it was just, I just saw a lot of families out there. They enjoyed it. It wasn't long. It was more visual. There's a couple more sparklers, no booms, I guess, so to speak. The larger fireworks displays, I kind of like the louder ones and the more commercial grade. But it was good to see the families going to the event, attending the event, enjoying it, and it ended about almost as soon as it started, it seemed to me. It was very, very brief. I do agree that there should be some restrictions. I would like this John Carroll be the only area that the state would permit something like that to occur. But I believe Walter Stinson Park could actually hold the fireworks display, but it would be even smaller than what John Carroll can do because of yes, Chief Perko did say that. For what could be displayed to be smaller, but I think it'd be highly unlikely that the city would permit a fireworks show at Walter Stinson Park. The issues in regards to the permit, the review, the license would have to be insured, and the fire and police would have to review that information as well. I thought a lot of it hits the details, but I do have some concerns about the restrictions. I think it'd be highly unlikely John Carroll will be having a fireworks display every week, as opposed to during alumni weekend for that. But the notification portion, I think that needs to be brought in as well, at a minimum number of days and a minimum number of requirements as to how the notification should be sent out as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney. Are there any other comments? If not, is there a motion to vote on ordinance 2025-06? I will make a motion. Is there a second? Okay, since there is no second, this agenda item did not pass. There is a possibility that it can go back into committee for revisions. And if that's the case, then we will let John Carroll know so they could be present. Ms. Weiser?
Vice Mayor, I'd move to refer it back to safety for additional restrictions to be added to it. and then their recommendation to bring it back to the council.
I'll second that motion.
Do we have to add that to the agenda, Mr. Bryan?
It's related to the ordinance.
Okay.
No.
So we need to vote on it before.
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
No.
Mr. Rock.
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, John Carroll. It will be going back to the safety committee and we'll let Ms. Marshall know that for agenda. Agenda letter D, ordinance 2025-25, appropriation amendment. Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. As I stated earlier, mid-year, we try and go through all the accounts to see what status we're in, what things were not provided for in the original budget. You know, the budget was passed last December. So I compiled a list. I'll go through them very briefly and answer any questions if anybody would like. But upon completion of this and filing with the county, this is the third appropriation amendment of the year. This should put the budget in pretty good shape to make it through the end of the year, barring some other kind of project or program that comes up that was not contained in the original budget submission. So is that okay to go through?
Yeah, sure.
So I attached a briefing memo. There's 4 lines that relate to Bureau Workers' Compensation payments. The ancillary program that we used for the budget, we had some problems with that. When I went back and checked this, I realized that the formulas that were in there were incorrect. So we would run out of money in each of these individual department lines. So I'm proposing to add $74,000 to the police department general fund line, 15,000 to the fire department general fund line, 7,000 to the service department, and 4,000 in the general administration department. Those are all in the general fund.
Mr. Kennedy, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. So this was more or less an accounting error. Did the percentages change on the calculation for Bureau Workers' Comp? Is that
No.
why these changed?
No, the formula that was plugged in by our software provider, they build schedules of salary information, benefit information, union rates, longevity. For some reason, this did not pick up the correct formula. So we were short in the amount that was allocated to these 4 departments.
Okay, and do we pay that monthly or quarterly or annually?
We pay it monthly, $19,714.11 every month.
Okay, thank you.
So those are, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ms.
Ms. Sacks?
Thank you. Thank you very much. This adds up to about $100,000. Are these claims?
No, this is your premium payment.
These are
that you make
premiums.
through the year.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
It's moving on for the other amendments, $22,250 to line number 11420, that's refuse. Support a grant from Cuyahoga County for recycling programs. An additional, oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. So is that a match or is that going to be reimbursed?
Reimbursed.
Okay, thank you.
An additional $12,000 in the fire department to support EMS payments. We paid a couple of payments this year that we did not receive the bills from last year. So to wrap everything up this year, I estimate we'll need about another 12,000 to pay all our costs associated with the EMS billing provider we use. $20,000 in the finance department, those would go for additional salary costs for the new finance director since Ms. Iaconos will be full-time. $300.
Mr. Kennedy, and that's in the salary band?
Yes.
That extra 20,000, okay.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. Okay.
An additional $300 in the ARB. We pay stipends to members every year in January for the prior year. And our costs this year went $300 over what the estimates were in the budget that was prepared in December.
So I just had a question, I guess, on 8 and 9. I know we increased. Is that the reason?
Yeah.
Okay, we just didn't budget it. Okay,
Yeah, and number 9 is $100 for the BZA, same thing.
Yeah.
$2,000 for the contract with the County Board of Health. We did pay the first half payment. That's paid through our real estate tax collections, and then we booked the expense. At the time we did the budget, we did not have the final numbers on what the contract was going to be for this year. So we're going to need another $2,000 in that contract line to pay for the second half billing that will come through the county property tax collections in July and August. I proposed $4,200 in the housing department to support acquisition of a new copier or printer for the department. The one they have now is pretty much out of gas. They can't get parts to repair it anymore. So we did make arrangements to get a proposed lease from a company to come in, and we'll pay this year just the monthly lease costs and the supplies. So that $4,200 would cover those expenses. Those were not in the original budget from last year. An additional $11,000 for salary expenses related to the pool. That's for the changes were made to the hourly wages paid both to the staff and the lifeguards this year. That should cover those increases in hourly pay rates. Number 13 is an additional $40,000 in the housing department salary line. That's to cover expenses for the new housing inspector that's coming over from Safe Bill that the city's going to place on our payroll. That will be enough if that person starts relatively shortly to cover those expenses through 12/31/25.
so just a question, we did not have a fully staffed department budgeted for
In
in housing.
not the additional inspector. No, that was taken out.
But we didn't have an additional inspector. We had, we
We
had,
budgeted the money for the inspector under the Safe Bill contract because that's where it was being paid before.
okay.
This is transferring the expense to the city.
Okay, so it's a transfer to the
It's
city out
transferred
of
to
safe,
in-house.
out of what we would have
Yeah.
paid safe bill.
Yeah, the next item is a commensurate reduction
Okay,
of the Safe Bill appropriation to account for that expense for the housing inspector. And then number 15, as I said, it accounts for, if you remember in April, ordinance 2025-18, we transferred $680,000 to the street maintenance fund. Of that, $580,000 was due back to the general fund. That advance back was made, so the net effect was to increase the street fund by $100,000, which was consistent with the extra money I believe the engineer said was at least going to be needed. We might have to do more, but it bumped up the fund balance by $100,000. So 15 and 16, those are just accounting adjustments. And the $580,000 that came back to the general fund is technically under government accounting is booked as revenue. So that is the list of items. As I said, this is the third amendment of the year. And if it passes in whole or in part, whatever that status may be, I'll file this with the County Budget Commission by this week to get our paperwork in order with them.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Kennedy? Okay, is there a motion for ordinance 2025-25?
Suspend the rules.
Not on, I don't have it on emergency. Do we want to?
Still have to suspend the rules. It's, the ordinance is drafted as an emergency ordinance. I mean, appropriation amendments are effective upon passage.
Okay.
Regardless, but we still need to suspend the rules.
Okay, sure. So, is there a motion to, is there a motion to suspend the rules on agenda D?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks, Mr. Cooney.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Rod.
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
aye,
And is there a motion on the main motion
so move
Second.
on emergency?
on emergency.
Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Who had the second?
Mr. King,
Mr. King,
yes.
Mrs. Sacks,
Aye.
Mr. Cooney.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise,
Yeah.
Just, Mr. King didn't vote.
Aye.
Okay.
I thought I heard by conversation, I'm sorry. Mrs. Wise,
Aye.
Mr. Rock.
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you.
Agenda letter E, resolution 2025-26, adopting a solid waste management plan for the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste Management District. Who will be presenting on this?
There was a memo that was supposed to be in the packet. Can bring it up. This is from Alan Pennington, Service Director. No, Chuck, the Assistant Service Director is here. Chuck, did you have anything on this? Or should I just read this memo? You want to come up with the memo? Yeah, you can read the memo. You could introduce, I don't know that everybody's met you yet, so if you could introduce yourself. We announced you at the last meeting, but this is our new Assistant Service Director.
I'm Chuck Steinley, the new Assistant Service Director.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. The Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District periodically updates their solid waste management plan as required by the EPA. As a condition of the plan update, member communities must adopt a resolution to adopt the plan. If the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District does not receive the required number of community resolutions to adopt the plan, the EPA steps in and makes their own plan. It is in the best interest of the city of University Heights to adopt the plan as indicated. Attached, never mind, you don't need that. I recommend council approve this resolution at its earliest convenience.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Okay, we have till August to, we don't have to approve this tonight, or we do have to approve this tonight? I'm just curious.
Yeah, if you need more time to review it, you can wait.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I'm just asking the question.
Are there any other questions? Is there a motion? Resolution 2025-26?
So moved.
We need to suspend the rules, the motion, the first motion.
Do we
It's on
need-
first reading. Oh, it's a
This is a
resolution. Sorry. Forget what I said.
What?
My
No,
mistake.
It's on first reading.
It's a resolution.
No,
It's a
resolution.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, so Mr.
He
Cooney,
made a motion to.
Mr. King, you seconded it?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney,
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Rock,
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Aye.
Thank you, Chuck.
Sorry.
Agenda letter F, motion requesting permission to seek bids for the 2025 pavement marking program. Ms. McPhee?
So I would like to go out to bid on the pavement marking program next week, Thursday. It would advertise for 2 weeks. And then the bids would be open the following week on June 16th. Or, no, I take that back, June 13th. It's a Friday. So last year we had 3 bidders. So I'm hoping to at least get 3 bidders this year, and we could get that program done over the summer months.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Cooney?
So the bids, they would have to be submitted by June 13.
Yes,
And do you anticipate a recommendation will be brought to the June 19th meeting?
the,
No,
the 16th, I believe. Yeah, if,
Oh, I'm in May. I'm sorry.
yeah,
My
if
apologies.
Mrs. Thomas will allow me to slip it in on Friday.
The June 16th council meeting, because that would be
Yes.
the last regularly
Right.
scheduled. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I'm going to be busy. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Rock?
I just have a question on the bottom of your table where you have contractors total to date and then you have your engineer's estimate. What, you see total to date?
So that's what we spent last year. That was their final.
That's what I was, yeah.
Yeah.
24, I had the same thing.
Okay, all right, so
Yeah.
that's what I thought. I thought it was in the fifties last year.
Right.
So your estimate, though, you're estimating it's gonna
Well,
be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Substantially
if
higher.
you look at the 3 bids that we got in last year, I mean, Pat Flowers was significantly less than the other 2. So
Yeah.
I hope that they bid again
Yeah.
and they're
And
equally,
you were,
yeah, oh yeah, he was very, he did a good job and he communicated well and everything went smoothly.
so one thing, when we go out for bid, we can also invite potential bidders.
Right,
To,
and I usually do. I
Yeah.
usually send out an email to let them know that the project is being advertised and all they have to do is reach out for the spec book and the bid sheets.
okay, and then I don't think it was last year, it might have been the year before, we had some issues with the quantities.
Yeah.
Has that all been cleared up?
Yeah, I think my numbers still might be a little bit high on some items because some things will be taken out and done, like with the street program or, you know, any other projects that might be going on in the city.
So you verified that?
Yeah.
Last year, okay.
Mhm,
Thank you.
mhm.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Rott.
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, and you're up again. Motion requesting permission to seek bids for the 2025 street program.
So same thing. I'd like to advertise next Thursday and then the following Thursday and open on June 13th so that I can turn around and hopefully bring a bid recommendation to you at the June 16th meeting.
Great.
I'm still working on those plans, doing some final drafting and final quantities, but it'll be ready to go next Thursday.
Thank you. I appreciate your work. Are there any questions for Ms. McVey on this? Okay, is there a motion?
So moved again.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Thomas, we call the roll?
Mr. King,
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Rott.
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And letter H, ordinance 2029, amending section 2020.24 of the city administrative code titled conduct of committees on first reading. Mayor, I think you
Yes, thank you.
sponsored this.
I'm the sponsor. Yes, yes. I asked Mr. Bryan to draft this legislation, given the continued problems we're having with the timely handling of legislation here in the council. Some legislation, of course, deliberation can go on, you know, for months and months. And if the deliberation is fruitful, then time isn't as much of an issue there. You know, in that instance, I'm talking about, you know, the tree ordinance, the grass and weed ordinance, which have been pending since the day after Labor Day and which will continue to have committee hearings into June and seemingly beyond. I had hoped, as did many residents, that we would have legislation passed in time for spring planting. This doesn't apply to that. But what this does apply to is the kind of legislation like establishing something as simple as amending a salary ordinance for an already established position. Back in October 7th of 2024, we had an ordinance to establish a salary for the housing and communications, the housing and community development coordinator. And this is still lost in committee. It sat in one committee for 6.5 months before finally being passed over to another committee to actually establish some sort of review and recommendation on the salary itself. This was introduced as emergency legislation back in October, and the functioning of our building and housing department has been hampered to the disservice of this community as a result of council's failure to act. This is a way for the council to impose some discipline on itself in these situations, and it proposes the following language. Emergency legislation introduced by the mayor and referred by council to a committee shall be acted upon by the committee within 40 days from the date on which the legislation was first referred to a committee, and then shall be sent back to council for placement on the next regular council meeting agenda or the agenda for an earlier special council meeting called for that purpose, and a required vote at that meeting whether to adopt the legislation. If no action is taken by the committee within the above 40-day period, the committee referral shall automatically expire and the legislation shall be placed on the next regular council meeting agenda or the agenda for an earlier special council meeting called for that purpose, and a required vote at that meeting whether to adopt the legislation. For any pending emergency legislation sponsored by the mayor that was referred to a council committee prior to the adoption date of this ordinance, the 40-day period specified herein shall commence upon the effective date of this ordinance. Obviously, we can't have a retroactive ordinance. So, things that were referred, for instance, to the Housing and Building Committee on October 7th, which still have not come back, that doesn't automatically come back, but it does begin the 40-day clock upon passage and effective date of the ordinance. This is something that I think, council has not hesitated to let me know when they want me to follow their deadlines. They passed an ordinance which required that a budget be introduced by no later than the first meeting of December. And then we honored that request. I wasn't thrilled. I thought there would be circumstances where that wouldn't be appropriate, but that's the law of the city, and I faithfully followed it and introduced the city's budget by that date. I think it's wholly appropriate to ask the council to hold itself to the same level of discipline with regard to doing the people's work on a timely basis, especially when it is something that the administration believes is something that is pertinent and timely and needs to be addressed timely and needs to be addressed as a priority, not the first in, first out effort that some of the committee chairs have taken, but actually looking at things that are urgent and treating them urgently. This conduct of committee provision is a step towards that. So I hope you will consider it. I hope you will debate it, and then I hope you will implement it or something substantially similar. Thank you.
Ms. Weiser?
Thank you. I have complained quite a bit since I've been on council with the number of ordinances that are handed to council marked on emergency. We have a tendency to get a lot on emergency. Here's the issue in terms of public discussion and debate on a lot of them. Anytime something comes through on emergency, our residents don't have a clue what we're doing because we could pass it in one sitting. We can pass it in one sitting. That does not open the door for any resident to be able to say a, nay, or whatever, if they so choose, and that's their right. Context matters with anything that's handed to us, and it said it's an emergency. Here's some of the background on the housing, the pay range for the position of housing and community development coordinator. When it was submitted and when it was referred to committee, yeah, it was submitted on emergency, but there was no discussion about why it was on emergency, what the pressing need was. The committee had a long discussion with the previous housing and community development director, who by all regards was valued heavily by the administration. And we asked him if he needed additional staffing for his department. A portion of the reason why they got asked was because in 2023 and 2024, we had a number of ordinances, 2023-62, where salary ranges were approved. It included 4 positions for housing and an intern. The coordinator was not shown. The coordinator position existed, but had never been filled. And when we asked Jeff, the director of that department, if he needed it, he said, no, they were fine. They were able to function. So we get this and it comes to us. With that ordinance came, it was interesting the way it was worded, because one portion of the ordinance did indicate that whereas the position of community development coordinator was not included in Exhibit A of ordinance 2024-41, nor did 2024-41 eliminate vacant city positions, which meant this was a valid still position. We had no problem with that. But it updated the pay range or put in a pay range for that position. A portion of the question the council has to ask for any position is, bluntly put, when we add a position that has a pay range between $60,000 to $80,000 with benefits, we're looking at adding to the budget every year approximately $75,000 to $95,000 a year when we get budget, health, unemployment, all the rest of the benefits added in. So it's a substantial amount. And because we had been told that the department didn't need it, we did ask. That came with no job description. It was just an ordinance saying, here's the pay range, prove it. So we did request the job description. The job description that came in, there were actually two that floated around, and they had two different dates, and we kept asking for updates. One of the other problems that complicated this, Building and Housing had been working on various things, and in October, our meeting in October had 4 old business items. 2 of them around dangerous dogs, and one was making changes to section 149304 of our current codes, making changes to rental units similar to the language we had in apartments, which was a recommendation from the city prosecutor, and also changes to the apartment ordinance that had been passed earlier, where we began to realize the implications of some of what was in there. Because we finally got detailed information from the housing department that helped us understand that not all apartments are created equal. So we finished those and immediately went to this, but it took us through February, where we began an in-depth discussion of the staffing. One of the issues we asked, the director told us that, well, first of all, we discovered there had been 2 open positions in housing. The admin 1 and admin 2 were then open because the director was the admin 1 and had been promoted. And apparently there was a missing admin 2. And the city had gone out to hire. And we wanted to see what would happen when that came in. And the director told us that some of the original things that had been in the latest job description for this position were going to be in there. We're moved into admin 1 and admin 2. And that's okay. That's what she determined she could do. And I assume it was approved by the administration. I'm assuming that. So that said, okay, what are you going to do with this position? We did ask for that in March, our regular March meeting. The HR consultant was not available, but he was available on the 31st of March. We scheduled a second meeting. The mayor had been complaining we only have 1-hour meetings, so we scheduled that for a 2-hour discussion regarding the job description. And the HR consultant came in. The job description was really good. There were some changes that council asked for and they made. We passed it at our next meeting and we referred it to finance. That's the budgetary aspect and the impact on the budget. I get it that this took a while to go through. It wasn't that we were trying to hold it up. But if this is such an emergency, there was nothing detailed handed to us from the administration explaining the emergency. Vague comments about, I want to do some restructuring, I want to do some new things in that area. That's one thing. But give us something concrete. And we didn't get anything concrete. But what we did do was come out with a pretty good job description that I think, if it gets approved, could do some good things. Now, we've got to look at the budgetary impact. One of the things that happens in any city, the easiest thing is to add people. But to add people also adds dollars, and those dollars are not a one-shot dollar. That happens year after year after year, and they increase year after year after year. Cities are personnel heavy. And we have a legislative duty and a budgetary duty and a fiduciary duty. And we have to honor that. One of the biggest challenges is sometimes we get things that aren't tree ordinance, sure. And what we found out was, because we had the arborist come in and talk to us about it, because we took it very seriously. We have joint meetings. 2 committees are meeting. That means outside of our regular committee meetings, we commit to an additional meeting for that. What we found out was apparently the city did contact the arborist about it, but when he didn't respond, they never followed up with him. So we agreed and we put it through to actually hire him to look it over and to give us some solid things. And he came back with really solid things that we needed to do with that ordinance. And we have made those changes for the better. The Citizens Committee, we made good, solid changes. Some of it was a suggestion by Councilman King. But these things take time. Yeah, we could get the administration to hand us stuff and all we do is turn around. We could vote 7-0 on anything they hand us. But then we are not doing our job. That's not adversarial. That's checks and balances. Right now, we have a federal government that doesn't understand checks and balances. And I'm utterly amazed the administration of this city that complains about them doesn't look at what they do. There should be a healthier relationship between a council and a mayor. Because the bottom line is we are here for the residents. We're not here for ourselves. I spent 4 hours today crawling around through ordinances and really looking at things and reviewing minutes. Because I take the time to look things up to see how we can improve things. Rather than just playing rubber stamp.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser. Are there any other comments, Mr. Cooney?
Thank you. All right, so in relation to the proposed ordinance, you know, I thought it was very interesting because we have had several ordinances where we did require time. We tend to work better by deadlines. And I thought it was an interesting approach. The budget was one example. You know, we're looking for the street marking program. There are deadlines when this have to get submitted. It's when we have to, you know, move forward on it versus just having these open-ended dates. I do have some concerns about within 40 days. It's fairly tight. There are times under July and August, obviously council is not meeting. But I think there's an opportunity if we look at it to perhaps move some things forward quickly. And what strikes me is that the first sentence for F, what's being proposed, emergency legislation introduced by the mayor and referred by council to the committee shall be acted upon by the committee within 40 days from the date. If council takes no action, doesn't refer to it at all, nothing happens. Essentially, it just stays there in the council meeting. It could be tabled. you know, obviously that's probably not in the best interest of everybody. We should take some sort of action. But we have, in the last 3.5 years, I agree that we have received a number of things coming out of emergency, and I agree, there is some frustration there, and I'm with you on that. But one of the things we did identify, and the budget is actually a good example, working with the finance director to say what is reasonable with the departments, and we came to an agreement, but we acted expeditiously on that. So I do think it's an interesting approach, and it's not, and it shouldn't be rules are for thee except for me. If we're going to require the administration to meet certain timelines, it's not unreasonable that perhaps there should be some mechanisms in place. If an item does get referred to a committee by council, we should take action on it. And there's nothing in, there could be a committee that meets more than once a month. We don't have to wait once a month to do it, or just for an hour. Hopefully those emergency items decrease over time. But I do think it's an interesting approach and is worthy of discussion.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Bryan. When you were drafting this ordinance and looking for inspiration perhaps from other cities, is this something you see commonly, or is this something that appears commonly in other cities' codes?
I've never heard of it before. I'm not familiar with any other community having something like this.
So, okay, all right, thank you.
Mayor, did you have something?
Yes, I did. I feel like that there's, you know, some completing of a picture that needs to be done here to help, you know, illustrate why an ordinance like this is appropriate and necessary. You know, going back to the coordinator position of October 7th, you know, we were between directors on the Housing Community Development Department at that time. We had some applicants, we had some interviews, and we were looking for ways that we could restructure the department. You know, what the previous director may have said and how the department ran under him was immaterial at this point. Any representations he would have made to council about, you know, what he thought he needed for the department were off the table, or should have been, because he was no longer in charge of the department as he had moved on. As we were trying to figure out who would be appropriate to be the director of that department, it was important for us to have the ability to round out the department, you know, given different qualifications that people have. Most people in municipal work, if they work in housing, that's what they do, or they work in community development and that's what they do. And they're not necessarily doing both. You know, in our city, we have a consolidated department of both items. We were fortunate to have two people who were directors prior to our current director who had experience enough in both areas where they could better manage both housing and community development. But here, you know, we ended up with a director we ultimately hired, and I waited before I finally named the director because I wanted to be able to get the coordinator position determined in order to assemble the team. October 7th was the day that we introduced the ordinance. There was a housing and a building and housing committee meeting also in October, but it did not take it up. There was no meeting in November, as a joint meeting of that committee with the Service and Utilities Committee happened instead, with no regular meeting of the Building and Housing Committee that month. And then in December, there was a regular meeting, but again, the matter was not taken up. Both the October and December meetings, Phil McFerrin, our HR representative, who we paid to be here, came to testify on this. And usually we give deference to when we have an outside speaker. That did not happen at the Building and Housing Committee. The chair decided to take up old business and keep that in order rather than taking up the emergency legislation with the outside speaker in a department where we were trying to decide how we wanted to structure it, who the department head would be. Ultimately, we had to make a hiring decision because council wouldn't act. We get to January and it's before the Building and Housing Committee again, and they still do not take up the matter. They still take up other matters instead. We get to 4.5 months in February, which was, conceded that February was the date that it was finally taken up. 4.5 months later, when we were trying to structure the department. And it only got taken up after I came back to council and asked that it be re-referred to committee of the whole because the building and housing department wasn't even talking about it. I mean, they can say that they asked for this or they asked for that. All that began 4.5 months later in February. Didn't happen in October. And if we'd had that conversation in October, we could have said then, hey, we're trying to figure out who we want to hire. And we got one person who's strong in housing and one person who's strong in community development. And if we go with the person that's strong in community development, we could do a coordinator that's strong in housing, or we could do it the other way around. But in the end, we had to hire somebody, and we got a good candidate, but somebody who will readily concede that she is not a community development person, that she is a housing person. And because the day-to-day programs that need to be run, the legacy programs of point of sale, of rental inspection, of exterior inspection and maintenance. These things had to be done. We had to hire somebody who we knew could run those programs. And that made that ended up changing the fate of how we were going to hire and who we were going to hire. So the story did change over time because the situation on the ground changed over the time. While council doesn't act for 4.5 months, I still have a city to run. And it won't do to tell Susan Delaney or any number of other realtors that we can't give them point of sale inspections. We can't give them reports to let them sell, houses or buy houses in the community because, our building and housing committee has met, but hasn't taken up this matter for 4.5 months. And we're just going to shut down the department until council does the job. So this is what we're living in. This is what we're living with. And it's very frustrating and it cannot continue. It is appropriate for council to deliberate. It is appropriate for council to consider options. Of course, we want the council to be responsible stewards of public resources, but we want you to actually do the work. 4.5 months later, finally taking it from, advancing it on the agenda, that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable in this situation. It's unacceptable in situations like these. And then to finally refer to the finance committee, which I don't think is even meeting till June. So, we're talking about 8.5 months before the finance committee will finally take it up. And then when will council take it up again? And if that finance committee meeting is after the regular council meeting of the year, unless we take it with a special meeting, it's going to be longer than a pregnancy at this point. It's going to be like 11 months if we don't take it up again until September. And September is when our director left that department and we needed to begin reorganizing. It shouldn't take a year to reorganize a department when all we need is a salary for one person whose job description was probably going to flex based upon who we hired. So, there's a lot of frustration here being said about needing to have a better relationship between, mayor and council. I wholly agree. I wish I had a council that did its job, did its work, was timely about it.
Mr.
Didn't act like that they were acting in, didn't act like they're acting in good faith when they're clearly acting in bad faith. I asked this council back in January to take the referral back and handle it in committee of the whole. Nobody here made that motion. So, I don't know what else you want to do here. This is something that I think is a good sense way of imposing a little self-discipline, a little willpower to put the deadlines in place in a limited situation. And I'm happy to discuss, different ways we go about it. Mr. Cooney brought up a good point. And, this isn't before you on emergency. I'm not asking for you to vote on this tonight, not at all. But I think we need to have this discussion. And though I won't be mayor for much longer, I think the next mayor, whoever they may be, would like to have a council that would act timely. So I'm thinking about them too. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rock.
Thank you. I'm not exactly interested in this ordinance. And I've heard some points today that I'd like to bring up. For starters, you mentioned that council has deadlines on the administration, and while there may be a couple related to reporting periods and budgets, those are things that are cyclical. Those are things that we know about. They happen every year, or in the reporting period that happens monthly, quarterly, whatever. So that's stuff that we need in a timely manner to make our decisions, specifically with the budget. You know, think of it as an assembly line, and one person drops off here and we don't have our budget in a time that we need, then we're not gonna make our deadline on time, which is due to the state of Ohio. For instance, if you were to propose a budget on March 29th, we really only have 2 days to approve it by state law. So those sorts of things, as we had debated in the past, is why those ordinance came to life. Now, regarding the legislative agenda, you know, council sets its legislative agenda. By charter, the mayor certainly can introduce ordinances, legislation. That's fine. But to introduce it and then set the parameters and the timeline, I think is sort of unfair. We set an legislative agenda every 2 years at our retreat. I think you've only been to one, and you have skipped the rest. So to say that, you know, we're not doing our job, be there with us. Let's work out a legislative agenda. If we were to approve this, you could, for instance, put 50 different ordinances and resolutions on our table the next day, and then we'd have 40 days to approve it, you know? So I'm not ready for that. I mean, you always say this is your full-time job. So you're running the city in a full-time manner. We all have full-time jobs outside of the city. I don't think we're comparing apples to apples here when you talk about deadlines on one side versus the other. And that's my point I want to make.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser.
I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for what you said. Because you don't realize it, but here's the key. At no time did you sit down, I believe, with any of us. I don't know, maybe you talked to Mr. Cooney, maybe you talked to Mr. King. I don't think you talked to Ms. Sachs or Ms. Marshall or Mr. Rock or me or the vice mayor and said, well, Jeff left, so I think I'm going to reorganize the department. So that's a big piece of information you didn't share with us at all. That's, yeah.
I shared it on October 7th, but okay.
Well,
Did it on the record.
I have the floor. You did not share that with us. When I said, what is the context? Because you don't want to talk to council. Because you don't want to share what you're doing with council. Except to tell us, this is what's going to happen and this is what is going to be done. That becomes problematic. Because then we don't have a basis to work from. Instead of appearing to say, oh, if I tell them I'm going to reorganize the department and this is what I need, you assume apparently that we won't give you what you need, which is why you turn around and say, here's the band. Here's what I want to pay this person. You have to give us context.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser. I just want to make sure that we are not going back and forth, especially on this specific housing issue. So if I'm requesting only to discuss the specific ordinance, Ms. Sachs.
Thank you. I can talk from my experience on council. Very often, and it was so puzzling to me, but I get it. Emergency legislation has been provided to us on a Thursday or a Friday before a Monday meeting, expecting us to pass it and implement it immediately without having enough time to review it. Far too often, those ordinances are given to us without the due diligence having been done, without stakeholders' input, without expert opinion. An example was last September, the very important legislation on trees, shrubbery, weeds, hedges, where the arborist, the environmental scientist, we had to bring them in to the joint meeting because they weren't consulted and it was in good in some kind of, with good intention, but not the information we needed to take it seriously, which we are working through. Logistics, getting the quorum for the committee meetings. How many doodle polls have not been responded to by you, Mayor? Far too many times, no response to my doodle polls or very late response. Once telling me, us, to send the doodle poll to 3 people to manage your schedule. I once even changed a meeting, Service and Utilities Committee meeting. I think it was May of 22, I don't know, maybe 23, I think it was 22, to accommodate the mayor because I really wanted administration's input. And then in early 23, the Service and Utilities Committee unanimously supported an ordinance 2023-05, which was passed by council. And it took an entire year and lack of administrative, you just ignored it. Should I have proposed a mandamus?
Which ordinance is that?
2023-05 loose recycling. And so a year later, Service and Utilities Committee, we just felt recycling was far too important to let it sit on your table and do nothing. So we modified it to 2024-112 and what you see is an excellent response to recycling, which could have been a year earlier. It could have been, but anyways, my point is you're ready to point a finger and say horrible things about council who in good faith want to move the city forward, but you drag your feet, you ignore emails, you don't respond, and we still work forward. And I believe this place is a better place through our work. What I would like to see is working together, responsiveness, respectfulness, communication, letting us know, giving us time to understand what your vision is. You know, just to state it publicly without coming to a retreat. I've been to 2 retreats now in the 3.5 years I'm here, and you have refused. Not only did you refuse, but you scheduled the crowdsourcing, very important sustainability meeting on the same day as the council retreat where I couldn't attend and neither could my colleagues, which is so near and dear. So you want to undermine, but point a finger. Oh, well, the record, public record can see. Everybody can see, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me.
Thank you,
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Hicks. Okay, this will be the last
Yeah.
comment on this. It's on first reading, Mayor.
Yeah, I have to respond to this. Mrs. Sachs, I brought to you within a month a proposal for implementing the ordinance you say I didn't work on for a year. And then you didn't do anything, this council didn't do anything to pass hiring that consultant until that fall, that September. That stayed with, we had that proposal. I think you passed this in February. The proposal was that the law was so bad that the day it took effect was the day that Jeff Percorny resigned. His resignation was effective, the effective date of that ordinance. I, on the other hand, sought a consultant who could help us try to implement that ordinance or implement an ordinance in good faith along the lines of that ordinance. And I brought that proposal within a month of that passage, and this council didn't act until that fall. Months went by before we were able to actually hire this consultant. We hired the consultant came, did her work, made recommendations, you changed your ordinance, and now we have a great program. But to sit here and say that we didn't do anything for a year, wrong, absolutely wrong. And the paper trail will show that. Secondly, the idea, there was this other thing you brought up here at the end about the council retreats and the community crowdsource. We set the date for the community crowdsource, we advertised it to the public, and then the council retreat was scheduled for that date. The council retreat was scheduled opposite the community crowdsource conversation that had been on the books for months and had been advertised as such. And, you know, I took that as a sign that the council didn't want me at their retreat because obviously they wouldn't have scheduled it opposite the community crowdsource meeting with Future Heights that we had been promoting. And I wasn't going to skip that meeting to come to the retreat. And speaking of that, if the retreat is, as Mr. Rock says, to set your legislative agenda after your election, what were you doing having your retreat in November anyway, when you were all elected the November prior to that? It took you almost a year to schedule a retreat. These are all the things that are indicative of a council that just can't schedule meetings and get things done. I don't know how many doodle polls we get from Kelly anymore. We don't even know. We don't even know what we're responding to anymore.
Okay,
So,
thank you,
so
Mayor.
these are all,
We are finished
no,
with
you
this.
know, hold on now.
Point of
These
order.
are all things that the public needs to know
Point
about the city
order.
council not doing its job.
Point of order.
This is on first reading. We are going to go to agenda I. Is there a need for an executive session, Mr. Bryan?
There's not.
Thank you. We're now going to standing committees, building and housing.
We met tonight. We heard comments regarding second floor railings for second floor porches. A number of good suggestions. We've referred it to the law director for further review with the building officer. And hopefully we'll have an ordinance, taking a look at the ordinances to see how we can do some tweaking to provide a series of alternate things that could be done. We also took a look at adding some reporting requirements on a monthly basis to housing so that council actually has information regarding number of items that are being done, which is important. We currently get permits. Yeah, I know. We currently get listing of building permits that are issued on a weekly basis. That was in place for years, but it was not being done until I happened to run across it in the codes. And council has found it exceptionally helpful. It gives us a sense when things are being worked on, what type of permits are being pulled, how much we're getting in terms of housing improvement throughout the city. And we would like to see the same thing in terms of point of sale and a couple of other point of sale, exterior inspections, single and two-family home rentals. We keep running across rentals that are unpermitted in the city, and that's problematic. So these are all sorts of things, and we're actually going to do a data dump from what we have on Citizen Serve. Councilman Cooney made a wonderful suggestion, so we can actually see the kind of data and get it refined to the point where we're not adding too much to the requirement, but getting the information that is critical in terms of things we do with housing ordinances and the rental ordinances as well.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser. Community outreach?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I've spoken with Mr. Cook, and he has started uploading the Teams meetings to the YouTube site.
Yes.
Looking at that earlier, and there's a number of city council meetings and committee meetings. I'm still working with Starfish on an issue with saving the recordings. We were supposed to have a troubleshooting session with Microsoft today, but Starfish ended up having a scheduling issue, so that's put off for now. But once that's resolved, I plan on handing the creation of those meetings and managing of those meetings off to the clerk of council. There will be training. So we're making progress there. In regard to the Technology Advisory Commission, a doodle poll was sent out today. Looking forward to responses and having a meeting in June. Thank you.
Thank you. Economic development?
Yes, to piggyback off of Ms. Drucker's report on economic development. The consultant Zonco, who was assisting us with our zoning redo, had sent around a matrix. I think we're gonna need one more meeting before we go to the second draft. I feel that the responses in the matrix were answering questions, but not necessarily giving the direction that we needed to go. So I think we need to make some decisions before this next step, before we see it in the next draft, sort of directing him, this is the direction we're going to go on these particular items. I just kind of felt from the matrix that it was more or less defending what was originally written, not necessarily taking that feedback to figure out how we're going to go to that next step. So I think we'll just need one more meeting before we go to that next draft to make decisions on at least those items in the matrix. Is this the direction we're going to go, or should we go in this direction on some of those items?
Okay, thank you. Finance, there is no report right now. Recreation.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Purvis Park pool registration for the pool passes. It is open online. You can get your pool pass register May 20 and 21 from 5:30 to 7:30 at the pool. There is information on the city website, and there was a notification that went out in the Friday wrap-up email as well. There are some changes to the registration, including a utility bill within the last 60 days. And for children, documents that basically shows a child and the parent all live at the same address, as we're looking to improve the accuracy of the registrations that have occurred, update the records as what came out of the recommendations from the Recreation Committee in the early spring. So my advice would be, if you could register early, do so. You have some opportunities the next 2 days to get that done. And obviously you can also register at the pool, Purvis Park Pool, which might be a little chilly this weekend, but will be open, and hopefully we have a good, long, hot summer overall.
Can I ask, can
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Ms. Weiser?
had you gotten any headway with getting the other stuff up on the web? I
Yeah.
noticed people were complaining they didn't know when tennis sign up and
Yes, Ms. Fudge, thank you. I forgot to email you, but yes, that was all done last week. Those updates were put
thank
in
you.
place.
Thank you,
It
Councilman.
was done.
Tony.
No, there's Mike Cook and Miss Deanna Bremer Fisher were able to get that done quickly. And so I appreciate their work on that. I did have received some pictures of the work at the pool. Lifeguards have been doing the work with other residents, and they're eager for the season. And so far, everything looks good. I was also glad to hear that what also came out of the Recreation Committee, and it was approved by council, the new bike racks at Purvis Park, which is long overdue. So thank you.
Thank you. Safety, Ms. Marshall is not here. Does anyone have a report? Okay, service and utilities.
Thank you. I hope you'll bear with me. We had quite a robust discussion at the May 19th May 12th Service and Utilities Committee meeting. We welcomed Dave Conley, a veteran of First Energy for over 16 years, newly assigned as University Heights Service Representative. He outlined what to do in a crisis, who to call, who not to call. Administration was represented there. I hope that it will be publicized, that the mayor and Mike Cook and the staff will publicize in our weekly wrap-ups, in our mosaics, whatever, so that people really know what to do. We had quite an experience last August. Hopefully it won't happen again too soon, but those things do happen. And there was discussion about utility lines, maintenance, do's and don'ts. I don't know if that will ever get to the YouTube. But it was he was very informative. He also informed us that our city submitted a contractual agreement to First Energy for the failure program, replace upon failure to First Energy, unbeknownst to council or to our law director. So we'll see what happens with that. There is a lot for us to learn regarding LED street lighting, and that will be a focus of ours moving forward in service and utilities for many reasons. I also want to thank our city engineer, Brenda Mockbee, for her overview of our road and street repair program. Several points of interest, including the mention of a thought to consider regionalism with neighboring cities to position ourselves for volume discount on those most costly projects of our city. Finally, well, I want to thank our Service Director, Alan Pennington, for a very engaging discussion regarding citywide pothole assessment, recycling program review, and status of the Kerwin Yard. One of a strong recommendation voted unanimously by those in attendance at the Service and Utilities Committee was in an effort to reduce the barriers to recycling for those who want to participate but cannot, build upon our initial success. And that recommendation was to reduce the age from 75 years old to 70 years old of people who want to request assistance from the service department to bring their recycling carts to the curb. So we hope that administration will follow through accordingly. Thank you very much. Oh, there's one more thing. We have a joint committee meeting on June 9th, Monday, June 9th at 6 o'clock here, where we hopefully will finish the review of the trees, shrubbery and hedges ordinance, and time permitting, start on weeds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sachs. And Committee of the Whole, there is no report. Are there any other reports of special committees? Any unfinished and miscellaneous business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. King. Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Thank you for coming.